Hi, you're listening to the TL Podcast. My name is Thomas Le Hoang, and I am interviewing someone who seems ordinary, but who is achieving extraordinary things. That is the quest of this interview. G'day, Kieran. How you doing?
Good, Thomas. How are you?
So, Kieran Bresnahan.
Perfect.
Where's that from?
That's from the old country, from Ireland.
You come from over there? You
I was born here, but
Okay.
my grandparents.
Do you ever
were
go
from
back?
there. I haven't yet, tragically.
Really? What happened?
Yeah. Well, my wife had a few other destinations on the list prior to that, but
Right, I see.
it's definitely we will get there at some point soon.
And anyone
It
who's
was
got
open.
a Nahan always go back first.
Yeah, I know.
They never
Yeah, I
claim
should.
theyemselves being an Aussie until...
Yep. But I'm
All
only
right.
I'm only the vice captain at home, so I've got to sort of.
Okay, well, you got a better position than me, man. Listen, we just finished having lunch together, and I have to say I was really inspired by your story. Not because you're one of the best in John McGrath's eyes, not because you are ranked in the top 100 agents, but I was inspired because in my pursuit of looking for people who achieve greatness in real estate, I also love chasing the people who found some kind of balance. And around lunch, about halfway into the main, mate, you just came up with some lines that I thought, hold on, this guy's very different. So if you don't mind, I'm not going to talk too much about all your achievement because I think that there's podcasts, and I know that you do a lot of training even with Josh Vegan, so there's a lot of people who know this. But let's start from the beginning, right? You started at the age of 20 in real estate, 23?
23.
Yeah. Give us a few minutes of just the evolution between that and 2015.
Okay, so 23, I made the decision to get into real estate. I grew up in a little suburb called Oatley in the St George area, but foolishly thought that I had to go somewhere where nobody knew me so they would take me seriously.
So you know an area, everybody knows you, but you decide to just go and work in a different area.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Ridiculous. Yeah. I mean, I just thought because I did the paper run and I'd worked in my dad's butcher
Yes.
shop that they'd just view me as the paper boy or the butcher. So
Right.
I thought I had to go somewhere else to learn, which, in hindsight was crazy. But that's what I did, and I worked at a very small boutique independent office, and I had a fabulous boss at the time. She was great. Then in 2002, I'm a big believer, Thomas, sometimes the hand that picks up a book is not the same hand that puts it down.
Yes.
And books can change lives, right? So I was given John McGrath's book as a gift, and I read it, and I was incredibly inspired. That was his first book. It was called You Don't Have to Be Born Brilliant, which I thought was fairly apt for myself. And I rang him up, and I'd heard that they were going to open an office in Cronulla, and I rang him up and went and had an interview, and he offered me a job. That was in January 2003, and that was out of the Edgecliff office trying to sell into Cronulla, which was obviously really difficult. John came down and opened the office there later that year, maybe I'm going to say August, September. And, I was working, and then I met my now business partner. He came down with me. His name's Matt King, great guy. We're still in business together today. So we started putting each other's names on our ads, sharing our commissions, and just thought, together we'd build our profile quicker. Then in 2006, so the business had grown a little bit. There was maybe 10 agents there at the time.
Yeah.
And John McGrath offered myself and Matt and two other agents, probably the top agent at the time, and then the sales manager, the four of us to buy that business and take over the rights to the Shire, which Matt and I weren't super duper comfortable with the other two. So we asked John if we could open in the St George area, and he said, go for your life. So we did that. And then I think it was early 2007, we opened our first office in South Hurstville.
So now, suddenly it's no longer stupid, your first move into real estate, which is to go into an area you didn't know, because now you knew
We're doing it again.
how to do it again, right?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, we did that, and we just started, him and I and a couple of administrative helpers, and then gradually the team grew, and we didn't start out with any grand designs on building a business of any kind, a certain size.
There's people right now listening to this, and they probably thinking, this is stupid. Hold on. You spend this many years building your own profile in an area, and then you go and open in a totally different area. And I mean, mind you, it's next door, but
Yeah.
how'd you do that? What was the beginning like? I mean, you went out door knock. I mean, people don't know you, so they probably gonna ask the question: how is it possible to restart somewhere with your own money on the line?
I think, yeah, well, it is possible.
Oh, well, you've done it.
I think the opportunity to own our own business at the time, and we still are, big advocates for the McGrath brand, and we just thought it was a great opportunity. And where we weren't going to get that opportunity to do it ourselves. So it's the other side of the river. It's different, but we were selling a few in the area. It wasn't like we had zero presence, but we didn't have a lot of profile.
Yes.
And the model was slightly different in the sense that we were still allowed to sell in the Shire. So we, the people we'd known, we could have still serviced them.
Yes.
So we just took the view that if our GCI didn't go up at all, we'd still be fine, because obviously we were retaining all of it and still have the costs of the business. And we actually didn't think there was a risk at all. We thought the greatest risk was to stay where we were.
Yeah. So how long did it take you then to take over that new area of yours?
I don't know if we ever took over it, but not very long. We were so lucky, Thomas. We had some great people come and join us really early. Some guys, and one of the guys, young Bill, is still with us today. 16 years later, and we had a guy called Sasha that came with us, who was very well known in the area. I guess a lesson for all the guys out there if they're thinking of starting their own business. It's amazing when you be respectful of your competitors, that can come back in terms of
but you also gave us a hidden secret. You said we were so lucky. And I noticed that, the successful leaders, they're always lucky somehow. They're always thankful for their people first. So this is great secret, because great leadership always put their people first. They always give their people the accolade. And hearing you saying that, now I know why you're successful, all right? So you then opened the second one in 2006.
2010. So that was in Brighton, which is sort of maybe 7 kilometres away from the other one. A couple of our guys that were in our existing office went over there.
Right.
My business partner went over there as well to head that up.
Yes.
And we just repeated the same process again, and that sort of filled up. And we had, it was a pretty good business, I guess. And then we made the decision in 2015 to open an office in quite a different area, an area called Revesby. It's sort of southwest on the other side of Saltpan Creek. And, I've sort of done the same thing there. Now, probably haven't quite had the same success in that business, because initially we did. My business partner was there and running it, but then he stepped away from it to focus, because we opened another office in 2017 in Sans Souci. So we were spread a little thin, and it's interesting. It's a good office without being there's a lot of opportunity in that business, because we haven't had someone in there driving it. So that's a really good lesson. If people want to open multiple sites, it all sounds great.
Yes.
But if there's not someone with entrepreneurial flair on the ground driving it, very hard to make it a success.
Yeah. During lunchtime, you said a line, speed of trust. What does that mean? I think we were talking about business and how to connect with clients, and you use speed of trust.
I talked about speed of trust. When you're doing business with someone and you're acting under the speed of trust, i.e. they trust you, you trust them, it's easy. It's so quick. I have clients that just, and there's plenty of people on the call I'd imagine would have the same, but they would just ring me and say, Kieran, we want to sell this one.
Yes.
Can you get started?
Yep.
And we don't always have an agreement. Again, I'm exposed, but it's just the trust. My business partner and I, we don't have a written agreement. We have a big office and big business, and we don't have a situation where if there's a breakdown or if someone passes away or what actually, there's nothing written down. But it's
been discussed.
It's been discussed, loosely.
Yeah. Okay.
But we both said if something happens to either one of us, this is what we want you to do for our partner.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And we would just both honour that.
That's an amazing thing. Now, I want to talk about now your drive up until then, and I know the drive. You're a rugby player. You're highly competitive, right? You then moved away from that to go into golfing before you even start your gig in real estate. So I know competitiveness and probably sports has brought out some virtues in you that can be used now in sport.
Well, it's a metaphor for life, I think.
Now, then you said to me, something happened. You started to realize and change your ways some 5 years ago.
Yeah, it was probably about then, maybe slightly less, maybe 3 years ago. But what I found, Thomas, is I was very driven, and I would each year sit down and go, I want to do, X amount of sales.
Yes.
I want to make this much money. I want to buy this house. I want to pay this much debt off, or I want to do this. It was all, in a lot of cases, material.
Yes.
And there's nothing wrong with that. And I have to say, Thomas, I've achieved more than I ever thought was possible for me. But why did it feel a bit empty? That was the question I started to ask myself. I've got everything I ever wanted, but I still have that feeling inside that there's more. Why don't I feel excited? So I just started to, speak to some smart people and started to read. And if these guys can get one thing out of this talk is, if you're placing conditions on your happiness, i.e. when you get to a certain level, a certain status, a certain income, a certain house, a certain standing in society, and you say, once I'm there, then I'll be happy, I'm sorry, I feel like you're going to be disappointed, right? Because why do so many people, you can be incredibly driven, right, and be enormously successful in the public eye. You can accumulate a lot of stuff, but why do those people still self-sabotage? Why do they cheat on their partner? Why do they take drugs? Why do they abuse? Why do they do all those things?
Yes.
Because they're empty. They're looking for the next high. So what I've realised is that really where the joy is just finding the best in me today, right? And it's so counterintuitive, but if you just focus on today and make today a great day and give everyone you meet a great experience and be effective, you'll actually have more than you could ever imagine, because the law of attraction kicks in, because people can smell if it's all about the deal. Yeah. It's so easy to spot.
But how do you explain it to some of our younger salespeople who have been raised to chase a goal?
It's really important. It's a great question. I don't want them to. I have lots of young salespeople work in our team, right? Yeah. And I encourage them to pursue their goal, but not at the exclusion of everything else. Don't think when I get the goal, then life is better. If you can't be happy now, you won't be happy when. It's impossible. Why do people who are overweight, you see them, they lose 25, 30 kilos. Why do they put it all back on?
Because they feel like food.
Well, we all love food. We just proved that at lunch, right? But it's interesting. I watch people, and that's an example. They think, when I'm leaner, when I've got a girlfriend, when I'm married, then I'll be happier, right? But it's just all external.
Too many conditions.
All conditions. It's all predicated on certain things happening, and we're all so attached to these outcomes, these goals. That's when the slightest thing goes wrong. You've been servicing a vendor for 3 years, calling them every month. You feel like you're a shoo-in, and then they give it to another agent. I have people in our team that would derail them for a month. Why? Why would you let that happen? I mean, it's happened. You have to accept that and move on. In business, if you're not missing any, John McGrath always said, if you're not missing business, you're not chasing enough, right? You have to accept that that's going to happen.
Yes.
It's inevitable. Now, your success or otherwise in this business is largely to do with your ability to just move through that and be consistent.
Right.
If you can do that and be consistent, Robin Sharma, he says consistency is the secret to mastery. And part of being consistent is having a consistent energy too. You don't ride the highs too high and you don't ride the lows too low. Right as we're having this podcast, this is one of the best markets you and I have ever seen, Thomas. Yeah. And, if you're a real estate agent, it's a great time.
Yeah. If you don't do well in this market, you better get out.
Probably. Well, it's got its own set of challenges as well, right? But Buddha talks about impermanence. Nothing is forever. It's going to change. So if you get too excited and you start buying the flash car and spending all your money now, when things get tougher, which they inevitably will, might be a year, might be 3 years. That's why you crash.
Right.
Just take the middle path.
So, Kieran, you talked a lot about the presence into the now during lunch, and I know that you gave me such a beautiful and inspiring thought. I noticed that you're very much into, even as we're doing the podcast, I noticed your attention and your energy is just here.
Well, that's it. That's all it is. And life is really a collection of experiences.
Yeah.
Right? Great experiences shared with people we love, our friends, success in business, sporting pursuits, those things. I have a theory, Thomas, like I love skiing. Not very good at it, but I love it.
Yeah.
And I've often wondered, why do I love it so much? Is it the actual skiing that I love? Or is it the fact that when I'm skiing, I'm not thinking about anything else? I'm not thinking about what's going on at work, what I'm doing next week, what's for dinner, what are the kids doing. All I'm thinking about is skiing. So I'm intensely present in where I am. That's why we love it so much. The actual activity is secondary, in my opinion. Right. So, why do we love auctions? We all love them. But when we're having 2 or 3 bitters there and we're watching, we're present, we're there. Mm-hmm. We're not worried about anything else. We're not thinking about anything else. That is the key. If you can actually get yourself into a state where you are completely focused where you are on the activity or the person that you're with, the other person will feel that. You'll be far more effective yourself and you'll just be way happier, right? Now, it's really hard to do. So hard.
Yeah.
That's why none of us can do it.
So what did you do in order to...
Well, I still have it. I'm probably like that 5% of the time. The rest of the time, I'm like everybody else. I'm either kicking myself about the mistakes I've made in the past, and there's been heaps, right? So if you're not careful, you live there and you end up with mental health problems and all kinds of issues, right? Because you're so disappointed and you're kicking yourself. The other alternative is where I probably spent a lot of time is thinking about the future, obsessed with what was coming, right. When I was going to be better, when I had more. More is just, there's no such thing. That'll never materialise because you get more and then you want more. So, I don't know, Thomas. It's such for some people it's a super fluffy topic, and they might listen to this unfortunately and get zero out of it, and that probably would have been me.
No, that's probably because they're not ready for the lesson, right?
We just have to be ready.
That student who's not ready, right?
Well, when the student is ready, the teacher appears.
But here's the thing. I would not listen to a guy who has not succeeded in real estate talking like this. But I have to listen to a guy who has built a great business and who has got 4 daughters, spent times around them, and still find ways to build his empire. I need to listen to a man like this. So that theory of yours of just being in that moment is a great theory. I mean, you talk about like Tully from whom you learn.
Yeah.
You learn about that. You talk about the 5%, and I think you're pretty humble because the 5% makes a difference. The difference between the person who does 0% and 1% is already huge, right? So a person who's doing 5, it's 5 times bigger than that 1.
Yeah, no, it is.
So did you have any key moments in your career?
I remember in 2008, it was right in the middle of the GFC. I don't know if you remember that, Thomas. Lehman Brothers had just collapsed. And our business, so we just started our business. We were growing quite rapidly at the time. We had a number of staff, maybe 10 or 12 staff.
Yeah, 2008, September.
Around then.
Yep.
In August of 2000, I think July, we sold about 8 properties amongst the whole group. August 2, September 4, and October might have been 6 or something. It was horrendous. Like we were hemorrhaging money,
right.
My business partner and I. And we had a sales meeting and my partner in his wisdom said to the team, if you guys don't start selling some things, my house is going to be the next listing, as in his own, because you're not going to be able to afford to keep it.
Yep.
And you'd never seen a room go more flat in all your life. I said to him, mate, that's not the way to motivate people. I'm telling you. He goes, I know, I'm just fucking tired. I'm shitting myself, I said, mate, that's not the answer. I said, you know what? I still remember the day I said, I'm going home and I'm going to change my life. I'm not going to worry about this stuff anymore. we can't control what's going on outside us. We can't control the environment. What we can control is the energy we bring every day and what we do. It was remarkable. I went home and I wrote out a series of goals, you know, because I had 4 kids at the time. My 4th had just been born. So I had 4 kids under 5.
Wow.
I had a mortgage of about $1 million and I was stressed, right? And the mortgage was going higher and higher because obviously I wasn't making any money. So I went down and I said, right, all I'm going to do is I'm just going to knuckle down. I'm not going to worry about anything else. I'm just going to prospect and list and capitalise on every opportunity I can. And one of the goals at the time I set was to pay that mortgage off in 5 years. I thought that was a good goal. At the time I didn't really think it was possible for me, Thomas, but I just wrote it down anyway. Mm-hmm. It's part of what I was talking about, right? So then we were lucky. Kevin Rudd, you know, the interest rates dropped significantly. If you remember, the market went on a little bit of a run and we had a really good couple of years.
Yeah, you didn't go on walk on the roofs and replace bats, right?
No, we did. We stayed away from the big bats. And I remember paying off that mortgage in 3 years. I remember the day I transferred the last payment. And I don't say that to try and impress anyone, but here's the lesson. I was like, is that all there is? Like, I don't know what I expected, Thomas. I don't know if there was going to be a parade down the street or like something amazing was going to happen. I was like, so different. And I actually fell into a little bit of a lull.
Oh, wow.
Because I expected like this amazing feeling and it didn't come, which was such a big lesson. But then sometimes we're not smart enough to heed that lesson. So I was a bit silly. What I did, I went and bought a property 3 times the value, sold mine, bought something and took on a ridiculously big mortgage because I felt like that was the answer. I needed to be striving towards paying something down.
Yep.
I needed that commitment. Like, I mean, can you get any stupider? But that was me at the time. I thought that was what I needed. But it's not at all. It's just what I was talking about before. Like, this is all there'll ever be today. If for the younger people out there who are driven by the accumulation of things, just take it from a guy who's a little bit older, that in and of itself won't be enough. Like, if you put your family aside, your kids aside. I remember there's a mate of mine, his father's like a bit of a mentor to me. He said to me one time, we were playing golf. He's an incredibly wealthy man. I just looked up to him. I was about 32. And he said to me, I said, what's it like, Pete, you know, like, you know, when you don't have to work? He goes, I don't understand what you mean. I go, well, you know, like you're okay. You don't have to work if you got enough money. He goes, yeah. So what are you trying to ask me? I said, well, you know, how does it, what's the feeling?
Yes.
He said, you want to know what's at the top of the mountain? I said, yeah, that's what I want to know. What's at the top of the mountain? He goes, I'll tell you what you see. He goes, the other side. That's what you see. He goes, Kieran, just be really careful. If you just disregard other parts of your life in this pursuit of success, you know, i.e. lots of money, he goes, wouldn't it be sad if you're climbing the ladder of success only to get to the top of the ladder and to realise it was leaning against the wrong wall?
That is amazing. Wow, that is amazing.
He goes, and then you got everything you ever wanted, but your marriage is a 3 out of 10. Your kids don't know you. He goes, I don't think that's a good trade. And, you know, I feel like I am and have been a really good dad. I feel like I've been really present. My marriage, you know, my wife she was 16 and I was 19, you know, when we started going out, and we got married very young, and I've never done the wrong thing by her. Well, no, she probably would say I have, but you know what I mean? I've never...
Hopefully she won't be listening to this.
I've tried to be, like, you know what I mean? I don't know, it's in this industry, we put people up in lights, and some of them, I have enormous respect for those guys that churn out incredible volume. Yeah. I just think I'm so impressed with the discipline and the work ethic and the consistency that is required to achieve those kind of levels. And some of those are friends, but it's just not me, right? But that's okay. How do we even know, Thomas, if we're living a great life?
I was going to ask you that question, you know that. Have
you
been reading my materials?
But how do we know?
Yeah.
The only way we know is if we all get clear about what's important to you. What is a life on purpose? What does a great life look like for Thomas? Not what we think society wants us to do. What do you want to do? What do you want it to look like? Because if you don't know what it looks like, how could we kick a goal if there's no posts? I don't want to contradict myself for what I said earlier. It's very important to set goals.
Yes.
You got to know where you're going, right? But you can't live there and you got to set the goal so you know where you're going, and then you got to detach from the outcome.
Yeah.
That's the direction. And now we just focus on today,
Yeah.
the things that are important, our health, our family, our loved ones, our work, our colleagues, all that.
Yeah.
Right?
To me, our goals are almost like when you do the Tour de France, the steps you have to reach, but they should never determine who you are. It's a little bit like all of these people who win awards, and the awards determine who they are. The awards now seem to define the person they have become. And I think that's where unhappiness occurs. The awards, nothing else but the recognition that you've done a good job. It's fantastic, great pat on the back. It's good to have that recognition, feels good. But it should never define who you are.
Totally, Thomas. Like,
and
why
a lot
do
of people, their goals define them. That's the issue, Kieran.
And that's a slippery slope. Like, over the last 10 or 20 years, we have seen a number of examples of amazing Australian athletes go to the Olympics, achieve everything they ever wanted, and then what happens after that?
Yep.
They
What's the
derail.
other side?
They go,
What's
oh
the
my
other
God,
side
is
of the
that
mountain?
all there was, right? Then once the gold medal's been achieved, you see them, they, in some ways, their life, they self-sabotage. That's exactly what they do. And it's really sad. And I think some of our younger, like sports, a lot of you interviewed Mark Nichols last time. Like, the footballers have so much time on their hands. I feel for them because they're so regimented. And then what happens when they don't have that?
Yeah. Well, Mark's lucky he's got a kid, and he's got a
him.
wife to keep him in line. All right. So he's a pretty busy man.
Yeah. No.
So I feel you got so much growth into you. So is there anything else beside real estate? Is there something else in Kieran's life that's about to come up? Has Kieran starting to catch a glimpse of the other side of the mountain?
Well, I feel like I'm probably not at the top yet, but what is my life going to look like? I feel like, you know what? It'll be more of the same. The real joy I get now is helping people that work with us be their best selves. That's what gives me the most joy, right? Obviously, I have 4 teenage daughters, so I want to see them be happy and make a great go of things. I want to keep working on my marriage. You know, I mean, these are all fluffy things. I hope, success is actually really simple, Thomas. We make it difficult. We think success is this, like, complex thing. Yeah. It's actually not. And for a long time, all I was looking for from whichever conference I would go to or book I would read or podcast I'd listen to, well, not so much, there weren't podcasts then, but I was always looking for the silver bullet. You just tell me what I need to do to be, like, happy, content. We already have that. You can't look for peace. It's already in you. You just have to be present enough to go, okay, when those thoughts, the overwhelm kicks into our mind, we just have to realise that they're just thoughts. They're actually not real. And 95% of the time, they're never going to happen. And we worry about them and anxiety and all these things. You just deep breath, focus on your breath. Something bad happens to you or you perceive it to be bad, it's cool. Just let it wash over you. Yeah.
You spoke about success without fulfillment is hollow.
Yeah.
Right? So I feel for the explanation or the translation of what you've been reading, sharing with us is the goal is the goal, but that doesn't mean that the journey is much smaller.
Correct.
And then if you can really focus on every single moment of the journey, it actually brings you the fulfillment towards the goal.
That's actually the fun part.
Yeah. That's
the enjoyable part. Now that I've looked back, and I'm still young, like I'm only 44. It's not like I'm 92.
It's so wise, mate.
So I've still got time, but that's the biggest piece of advice I would give to younger guys. And I try and give it. Some of us are just not ready, Thomas. I was in a session with my team the other day, and we were having this kind of discussion. And I try and make it safe for people to come and tell me how they feel. And one of my agents, she's a young female, really talented agent. I said, how'd you find the session? She goes, Kieran, to be honest, I need a real estate coach. I don't need a life coach. I need you to help me, how to sell more real estate. Isn't that funny, right?
Yeah.
Not quite ready for the info.
Yeah.
But if I was unconscious, I would have taken a lot of offence to that.
Yeah.
I was like, that's fine. No problem. Just let me know what's going to work best for you.
You have to be grateful that she was honest.
She was honest, which is awesome. She was honest with me. But she just felt this information was rubbish. and there'll be people on this call that will actually.
Well, you said that about Eckhart Tolle. How many times did you have?
I tried to read it when I was in my early 20s, and then I tried to read it when I was about 35, and I thought the guy was an absolute Fruit Loop.
Yeah.
Right? He talks weird, he talks in a monotone, but then the light bulb goes on for different people at different times.
Yeah.
I've learnt that. Right? And some of us are ready and some of us aren't. Right? But at some point, it'll help all of us.
So I know that you're very much people person. Is that the most important key factor in your organization?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we have four key values which we build our business on, and the first one being customer centric. So everything's about what's best for the customer. United, i.e., we work together as a team. High performance. In terms of everything, that doesn't mean you have to do 100 sales a year, but everything you do with integrity and you do it at a high level. And then the other one is innovation. We try and obviously we want to stay relevant and current and embrace technology to make our job easier and the customer experience better.
Okay.
And all the people is probably not entwined to that, but you know, we've been really lucky. We've had people leave over the years, which happens to every business, but we have a number of people that have been with us for longer than 10 years.
Wow,
which
that's
is
amazing.
nice. In real estate, that's quite rare.
So you have a top performer, but he turns out for some kind of reason that he's not the right fit for the business. He's becoming more of a 400-pound gorilla. How do you deal with a person like that?
Wow. It's a really tough question. And for a long time, I haven't got anyone like that now, touch wood. I have had in the past, and to be honest, I haven't handled it well, Thomas. I've probably been greedy and looked at the income that was generated through them as opposed to how they were treating their colleagues, which has probably held us back a little bit, and it hurt me in the terms of I had a few leave at one time, which was led by one of these guys that probably I should have exited from the business beforehand, but I didn't because I was scared.
Okay.
Fear
You're
gets
so
in the way.
humble, man.
Well, I'm not humble. That's what happened. I'm just telling you the truth, right? Fear gets in the way of just about everything we want to do, right?
Well, you said, isn't it? Fear and greed,
Yeah, well, that's if you want to motivate.
Emotions,
two most
right?
powerful emotions. But I was scared. I was scared of that they might leave if I came down too hard on them. And then you know what? They left anyway.
Yeah. And not only they left, but they left leaving a bigger hole than
it
if
was
they had
worse.
left earlier.
If I'd have, my business partner wanted to get rid of him. He's better at that than me. I was like, he's a good agent, and I'll talk to him. I'll sort him out. Don't worry.
Okay.
He never did.
So I know Matt King is your partner. So how does it work when you make a decision like this? And let's say you turn out to be wrong. Does he say then, all right, now I've got a bonus point. Next decision is mine, not yours? Is that how it works?
Yeah, he does a little bit. No, we disagree on heaps of stuff.
Yeah.
All the time. Look, one thing we've done well, if someone has a really strong view, we won't go against that. So with that particular example, I didn't want to sack him. Okay. I wanted to keep him. He said, all right, mate, I'm just warning you. I think it's a problem. I think it's the wrong thing. But go, no, mate. All right, noted. But I want to keep him.
Yeah.
All right. And the key to our relationship is we can have a robust conversation, a huge disagreement, a fight, right? But we move through it. Half an hour later, I'll talk to him, mate, what do you think about this? And there's no resentment carried, which if you can't have that, that's actually not a real relationship, whether it be a marriage, a business relationship, a friendship. You need to feel comfortable to speak how you feel and not take offence. Because when we take offence, that's the ego in us, we talked about Piers Morgan this morning walking off the set because he disagreed with what the other guy was saying. Just couldn't deal with it. Rather walk away than actually have a conversation. Yeah, yeah. It just shows a lack of maturity, and you're bruised. Your ego's compromised, and it gets threatened. So we lash out, we react.
Yeah, I get that, but what if it keeps on happening? I mean, I have an argument with my wife, she wins. I have 10 arguments, she wins 10 times. I mean, at some stage...
It's a great point, great question. Here's the thing, here's what you do. If it keeps happening, we're not trees, we can move. Right?
That's a good one.
So if it keeps happening, you have a conversation. You say, mate, this is not working. So you either dissolve the friendship. If it's a marriage, you leave the marriage, right? The worst thing you can do Right? So with him, there's a lot of things
Yeah.
about him that annoy the shit out of me.
Yeah.
A lot. Right? But I love him.
Yes.
And sometimes I would resent him for it. Right? Sometimes if I would be doing a lot of business and he's not doing much, and I feel like, because we share we make exactly the same amount of money.
Yes. Yes.
Right? Whether I do 100 sales, he does 10, whether he recruits 20 people or brings in all these managements, like it's all the same.
Yes.
So sometimes I would resent him because I feel like I'm getting the rough end of the deal.
Yes.
I'm doing all the work, which is just, again, that's in my head. It's an illusion.
Yes.
And I would resent him for that. And we would talk about it. But, he's doing his best, right? He's never going to change. So I have two choices. I can accept it, right? Or I can say I don't want to be in business with you anymore. Now,
But when you say I can accept, it means I can make sense with what I'm playing in my own head.
no, I surrender
Right.
to what is.
Okay.
That's
okay.
what it is. That's our relationship. Surrender doesn't mean give up. Surrender means acceptance. I accept what is.
Without logical explanation to self.
And I'm not going to say, I'm just accepting what is, and we're going to carry on day to day.
Yep.
The worst thing you can do is what I was doing. I don't want to make out, we didn't ever had any problems, but if you're in marriage and you hate the marriage and you just stay there and you resent it and you pick away at the other person, like, you're better off leaving. But then that's not easy either, right? Because why do we stay? Because of, I'm getting into area which is totally out of my jurisdiction, but we stay for reasons.
This is top area because there's so many people out there in partnership. Kieran, you guys seem to have a very good partnership, mate. This is a time to give. This is a time to share, man.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna push you.
I'll give us whatever you can. Like I always had a belief that in the end, it'll always even out. For those that don't know, so Matt, I wouldn't have had the opportunities I had to open a business when I was 29 or 30 without him. Impossible. He's 8 years older than me.
That's maturity, right? That's maturity to recognize that.
Yeah. And I'm so grateful for that.
Yeah.
Now, that debt has been repaid by in terms of the contribution I've made, but he's a good friend. He's my best friend. Our wives are very close. We go on holidays together. He is a great man.
Yeah.
You could get him on here and he's have all these pearls of wisdom as well.
Yes.
But it's just acceptance. It is what it is, and I'm just grateful for what it is. It won't last forever. We talked about Buddha. Buddha talks about impermanence. Nothing's forever. It'll change us. You and I won't be here forever, Thomas.
No.
Right? But we enjoy it while we're here. We're grateful while we're here. And that's how we get the best out of each other.
Well, through the podcast, we'll be here forever, mate.
But you know what's funny? Like we say, I'll get a bit weird for a second. Like we look at someone, we go, I've got nothing in common with that person.
Yep.
Well, you actually do. And before too long, we're both going to end up in the same spot.
Yeah, it is true. It is true.
We're all going to end up in the same spot. No, but like business partnerships, they're not easy. That's why a lot of them break down.
Yeah.
But ultimately, if you're of good character and the other person is too, and you're accepting of the other person's faults, it should work. It can be super fun as well.
Yeah. Anybody's ever told you that you look like that Aussie actor, Sam Worthington? Or
No, mate. I'll take it.
Nobody's ever said that?
No. Poor old Sam Worthington would be a bit sad. He'd be horrified. Isn't he married to Lara Bingle?
Yes.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah. No.
Listen, mate, I have to say, you asked me that question during our lunch, but I have to say, this has to be my favorite podcast.
I heard you say that to the other one.
No. I always say I find inspiration in every one of them. And therefore, for me, they always carry that seed. Because when you're sharing, there's always something that comes out. Through a communion of two thoughts, there's always something that will remain. But when I sit in front of someone, and we've just met each other 2 hours ago.
Yeah.
And when you sit in front of a person who transcend a job and transcend work, and have managed to actually utilize the journey of a job in order to find their own self. To me, it is the culmination of going to the top. Oh. And so I don't know how to say this. I really thank you for sharing.
No, it's my pleasure.
And Yes, I could have asked you a lot of questions about real estate and all these things, but I know there's plenty of information out there. Anyone who wants to know, they can find your phone number up there.
Oh, they're always
very easily.
So, firstly, that's very kind of you to say, Thomas, and thank you for that. I just feel like it's incumbent on people such as myself are getting that little bit older and been in the industry for a while to actually give back to an industry that's been very kind. Like, it's been very good to me. You know, when I was 25, I would rely on things like this to learn. So, you know, even if the guys listening to this get a small something out of it that could help them.
I guarantee.
And in terms of, you know, they're always welcome to ring me if they've got an issue or they're struggling.
No, I guarantee.
Always happy to give them a hand.
And I think that your area and your team should be really proud to have someone like you to service them. And I really thank you for your time today,
mate.
Kieran.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
All the best.
Thanks.